What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the watch list for Game Week 10. So these are some players I think we should be keeping an eye on. Obviously, it is kind of a watch list for my own team, so none of the players that I already own are on the list as normal. And I know some people think like it's a little bit knee-jerky, and it probably is sometimes, right? I do try and put players on the watch list that have just got good upcoming fixtures, or I think they're going to start doing well. But sometimes it very much is like, well, this player's just done well. Should we look at them? And it doesn't always happen. Like, there's plenty of players that score big that I just completely ignore, but this one's definitely a little bit knee-jerky from the weekend because there's quite a few kind of decent players that we should possibly be looking at, and very cheap players as well, which might let us restructure our squad. And I always get questions about them, so it's worth just putting them in at least one video than talking about different ones in other videos. So if you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button. If you are new around here, let's jump into it. Okay, look, you score a hat-trick, of course, people are going to start talking about you, and yes, we have to take into account the fact that it was Norwich at home. I fully get that, and I'm not rushing out to buy Mason Mount necessarily, but definitely want to keep my eye on him. Now, I can't remember if I was asked about him on the deadline stream, but I was definitely, asked about him in one of my Patreon videos last week, the Q&A, about Havertz versus Mount. Now, to be completely honest with you, if I was picking a player last week, I probably would have just gone for Havertz because I just think the number 9 playing against Norwich is decent. But as a long-term move, we know that when Lukaku's back, Havertz then possibly becomes a problem unless, you know, Tuchel has a change of mind on how they're going to play or how they're going to set up and stuff like that. Whereas Mason Mount is probably a little bit more nailed. Now, again, going on from kind of what I said in the knee-jerk video, I'm trying to get around saying nailed all the time because Mason Mount is not necessarily going to play every game. But I think in that midfield, when you're looking for someone that's going to play regularly enough and has also got pretty good numbers, Mason Mount is someone that is going to tick over. And Newcastle away, Burnley at home and Watford away in the next 5 are pretty good. I wouldn't be massively put off by Leicester and Man United. Again, if you're making like a long-term move, if you only need someone for like the next 4 weeks, then yeah, maybe you're just looking at Phil Foden or someone like that instead. But Chelsea's fixtures they're just pretty decent for quite a long time. So you get that Watford game, then it's West Ham away, Leeds at home is decent, Everton at home's not bad, Wolves away, Villa away. Now, this is a player that you can keep in your team for quite a while. So right now, realistically, if I'm buying a player around the £7.5–8 million mark, it's probably going to be Foden over Mount. But from a couple of weeks ago, saying there's not really too many players in this price bracket, now we've got Foden, now we've got Mount. I mentioned Gundogan last week as well. He played again. I'm not quite sure exactly who's going to play week in, week out in that Man City side, but there's a few players now around this spot where it's getting to the point where I feel like personally I'm like a little bit behind about having that spot in midfield. I've got too many 5.5 to kind of 6.5 million midfielders, and at some point I need someone else. And if Phil Foden becomes an issue, then I can swap to someone else. If I want to go for Mount and then swap to him later on, then I can. So for those of you that are considering him, obviously he's not going to play Norwich at home every week, but Newcastle away and Burnley at home is pretty decent as well. He should get regular enough minutes. I'm not going to say that he's going to start every week. And 0.27 expected goals, 0.41 expected assists is pretty decent. Again, we're still in a very small sample size. Those numbers could come down. But his numbers in general, since they've, you know, over the last couple of seasons, are pretty decent. They're not kind of out of this world great, but he does tick over in a team that will score plenty of goals, and he does play quite regularly. So as a 7.4 million option, I quite like him. But if it's a straight comparison between like him and Foden, then right now there's probably no question I'm going to go to Foden. But we have to take into account the Mount is a little bit cheaper, and for some of you that might have to be factored in. So if you're like me, recently you went for an Arsenal midfielder in your team. I think mine was on wildcard, and a lot of people have probably had to make this decision over the last couple of weeks. You either went for Saka or you went for Smith Rowe. Some of you probably went for Odegaard. I think he is probably the worst of the three for sure. Obviously Pepe's not nailed and Aubameyang's a forward. But for those of you that went Smith Rowe over Saka, you're probably quite happy right now. I haven't even checked their points, but I think over the last couple of weeks, Smith Rowe is probably a little bit further ahead. And he was cheaper as well. A lot of people got him at 5.3 million. Now, to be honest with you, I'm unhappy with the points that Saka's got, but in terms of a decision, in terms of a player, I don't think it was a bad choice to go for Saka, but obviously it doesn't look great right now, and I'm not really looking to actively sell him, but I'm fully aware for my own team that at some point soon I'm probably going to need some money, right? For those of you that watched the knee-jerk video, I spoke about this. So for future transfer plans, like I've got a plan up until game week 12, but as we've seen over the last few weeks, things change quite quickly, and so at some point I'm probably going to have to downgrade a player that I don't really really want to. And Saka to Smith Rowe, keeping with the same team. They've got some decent fixtures coming up. I think with the way my squad is, and probably a lot of squads, you don't necessarily need to play this player every week. So Watford at home is decent. Newcastle at home is decent. I wouldn't hate having to play him against Everton away either. So there's points where you can play him. I wouldn't be bringing him in to play him every single week. The one thing I would say about Saka, for anyone that's kind of worried about if they went there instead of Smith Rowe's expected data, so his goals, expected goals plus expected assists, are 0.3 per 90 so far, 0.30. Now, obviously, again, we're still very early on in the season. These numbers could go up. These numbers could go down over a bigger sample size. But that kind of tracks where he was last season. So he's got 0.30 expected goal involvement per 90 this year. It was 0.31 last year. So he's not really got any better. He's kind of at the same output, which is fine, but it's nothing to kind of shout home about, right? It's fine. He's cheap. It's fair enough. He's a good player, good price, etc. For Saka, he's at 0.38. So a little bit of an increase, but obviously over time that will kind of hopefully even out to more points for Saka. And that 0.38 is much closer to his 0.41 that he had last year. So as an option, I still think that Saka, like if we took away price, I still think that Saka is a better pick. I think he is more nailed, although I think Smith Rowe is very undroppable right now, and Odegaard is the one that's losing minutes and he's not starting, etc. So he seems to be the kind of the problem. And Smith Rowe does progress the ball really well. And obviously, if we're looking at kind of eye test or taking away the FPL aspect, Smith Rowe has been playing really well, but I still think Saka is more likely to get a return. So that's why Smith Rowe is on the watch list. I don't really want to remove Saka because I think he is the better option. He did miss a sitter at the weekend as well, but I think if I need some money, I don't mind making that trade-off because Everton away, etc. is not that bad. And if I just bring the fixtures up for Arsenal, so obviously I can go to Saka, who's currently in my team. Watford at home, like I said, Newcastle at home. But if you go further down, Southampton at home, you wouldn't mind having to play him in there. Leeds away, Norwich away, Wolves at home. These are all fixtures that if you have an injury somewhere or if a defender hasn't got a good fixture, etc., because we've all got pretty strong squads when we look at it, or a lot of us do, then you can play him in those fixtures. So if at some point I need some money soon, that Saka to Smith Rowe trade is one that I'm seriously considering. I don't think Smith Rowe is a player that I'm going to want to play every week, but I think he is a player that I could rely on. I don't think he's going to get as many minutes as Saka, but right now they're probably going to be quite equal. And if Smith Rowe keeps playing as he has been, then he could easily just get as many minutes as Saka over the next few weeks. So I'm reliably informed that this is pronounced Broja, right? Or something close to that anyway. So that's what I'm going to go with for now, unless the man himself tells me otherwise. Now, he started the last 2 games, got 2 goals. He's only 5 million. Now, he is obviously listed as having a knock, so let's see what happens later on this week. We have got a few midweek games. I think Southampton are playing Chelsea, so we should get like a midweek press conference from Hasenhüttl, and then we'll get another one at the end of the week as well. So you don't have to make any quick decisions on him. Now, right now, if I'm honest, if I look at my team, I don't really know where he fits in, but I have to keep an eye on him because a bit like Livramento in defence, suddenly a 5 million forward, if he's going to start most weeks, I think it's still way too... I think we've got to be careful about saying that he's now nailed, right? Obviously, Armstrong started loads of games. All of a sudden, Broja comes in, and now Armstrong's out of the side, which is quite interesting. He did come on, not for very, very many minutes in Gameweek 9, but Broja potentially... What this lets you do is possibly restructure your team a little bit. Now, again, when you want to restructure from kind of money in forward line to midfield or vice versa, it does usually take a few transfers, and you've got to really think carefully about it, because once you do it, it then takes all those transfers again to switch the funds back. But for anyone on wildcard, I'm sure they're strongly thinking about this, right? If you think about the forwards that are available right now, there is probably a case to be made to go for someone like this, 5 million. You don't have to play them week in, week out. They're a very similar price to Smith Rowe, for example, where I think people are doing the same thing. Sometimes they're playing him, sometimes they're benching him. And then you can put that money into midfield. So right now, if I think of forwards, okay, Vardy's playing quite well, but I think most people are going to go for Vardy or for Kane, not for both of them, right? So we say one, we'll just say the premium forward slot. Jimenez has got some pretty nice fixtures. He's ticking over okay, right? He's got like, 4 returns, I think, in the last 4. Nothing amazing. He hasn't got like a double-digit massive haul, like 15 points plus, but he's doing okay. Antonio, obviously, is doing fine as well. But the fixtures coming up are not great. So that's one thing to consider too. Tony's another good option. And then after that, it's kind of like, well, I don't really know if there's... Like, Armstrong's now a bit of a nightmare for people. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's been injured. Bamford's been injured. there's not too many options. So going for more of like a traditional 3-5-2 with a bunch of good bench options is now something that we could do. I think I would be very careful about restructuring my squad massively. Like, it depends what kind of FPL manager you are. For me, I'm a little... It's not that I'm completely risk adverse, but I am cautious, right? So I'm thinking, Watford, Villa, Norwich. I like those three set of fixtures. It lets me save some money that I can put in elsewhere. But at the same time, if he starts missing... Like, if he only plays, like, one of the next three, then that kind of puts me off a bit. And I know what people will be saying. Why would that happen? Well, I don't know. Why did Armstrong suddenly get dropped and not play? I guess, obviously, Southampton have then gone on to do okay. But there's nothing to say that Broja is now going to play week in, week out. So that's what would make me be a little bit cautious. But yeah, I think Watford away, Villa at home and Norwich away are a pretty good set of fixtures. He's playing well, 2 goals and 2 as well. And if you kind of have a look at Southampton's fixtures a bit longer term, obviously there's some games where you'd want to bench him. Liverpool away, Leicester at home maybe, Brighton at home, Arsenal away. They haven't got the kindest fixture run. It's okay, but it's not maybe as good as some other teams have. But there are some fixtures here where you could possibly play him if you need to. And obviously he is taking a lot of money out of your forward line to then let you spend it elsewhere. We're in midfield right now. We've just talked about Mount. There's Foden. There's Salah. Obviously not Rafinha anymore, but Mbomo as well. That's already 4 midfielders without thinking about another one that you might want, or you might want to swap out some of the ones I've said. So give him some strong consideration. If you're talking about Tony versus Broja, I still think Tony is the one. But depending on how your squad is set up and how you want it to be set up for the future, I would strongly consider him, but do it knowing there is a chance at times he could still miss out games. Okay, so another name I probably need to get used to saying. I think it's Cornet, Maxwel Cornet. I could be wrong. If I am, please let me know in the comments below and I'll try and switch that for the next video. But I think people are going to start talking about him again. He's another cheap midfielder. And if I think about all the stuff I've said so far in this video, cheap midfielders, although obviously we've got Foden, we've got Mount, there are still quite a few around the £6 million price point that maybe we should keep considering for our teams. Now, straight away... Right, it's a Burnley attacker. So, look, I've had Chris Wood in the past. I don't mind. I had a really good run off of Dwight McNeil back in the day as well. But they don't generally strike you as a team that are going to score a lot of goals. But when they do score, they tend to come through certain players. So Chris Wood's underlying numbers, like his XG, XA, etc., is usually quite good, or at least fine for his price, because everything kind of goes through him. And now Cornet, 0.63 expected goals per 90, 0.04 expected assists. Obviously, right, again, it's a very, very small sample size, but I think he's kind of maybe going to give Burnley that little bit of flair that they don't usually have outside of maybe Dwight McNeil. He's a little bit different to what we're expecting. So we kind of, like, the initial instinct is probably, well, it's a Burnley attacker, just completely ignore them. But I don't know if we do want to ignore him completely. And again, not saying you rush out and buy him, but this is a watch list video. This is someone to keep in your thoughts, basically, when you're looking to make midfield changes where possibly you don't want to spend too much money. Brentford at home and Palace at home are pretty good. The problem is Chelsea away, Spurs at home, Wolves away is not that exciting. So I don't know how quickly I'd want to bring him into my team. But the numbers are looking pretty good. He's been integrated into the side fairly slowly, but I don't really see why he wouldn't kind of now keep his place for a little while. I don't know if Burnley have really got another player like him. Obviously, he's played 33 minutes. You probably can't see that very well, but 33 minutes in Game Week 5, 45 in Game Week 6, missed Game Week 7, then 55 and 77. So as long as he can keep going up to those kind of 80 to 90 minutes, it's not that bad. Longer term, like around this point where you get Newcastle away, you also get Watford at home. But it's just, I don't know, there's just a few too many, like, not so great fixtures. Like sometimes if you get like 3 good fixtures, then 1 bad, then 1 good, then another 1 bad, you don't feel so bad about it because the good fixtures come first. But straight away he's got Chelsea away, then he's got Spurs at home, Wolves away is not even that great. Even then when he has Newcastle away, it's then West Ham at home. So it's not a bad fixture on this. It's just whether we can kind of justify him over other cheap midfielders. Obviously, one thing that's happening right now is we're still waiting to, like at the time recording this, I'm still waiting to hear how long Rafinha's out for. A lot of people have already gone from Mbomo, so around that kind of price point, there's maybe not a standout player right now. So if you wanted to go for a little bit of a flair kind of differential pick, then Cornet 0.1% could be the one. It is a little bit knee-jerk because obviously he's just scored 2 goals. But the fixtures aren't that bad, and he's playing nicely for Burnley. So I'm not putting him down as a go out and must buy, but definitely keep him in your thoughts, which is the point of the watch list video. So there we go, that is it for this one. Let me know what you think of those players listed. Are you seriously tempted to go for any of them? I know a lot of people maybe already have Foden. Have you got another spot for Mason Mount? For those of you on Havertz, what's the long-term plan? Smith Rowe, Broja, Cornet, what are we doing with these players and who is on your watch list? Let me know below. If you enjoyed that, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and I'll be back tomorrow with some transfer tips where we're going to talk about a whole load of different players.